Okay, we're live. My name is Lisa Kirby, and we have the lovely Shannon Morse. We're the
Okay, we're
co-founders.
live. My,
We are the co-founders of The Green Door Life, and this is episode 5 of our weekly podcast. And what a treat! Both Shannon and I were saying last week, we look forward to this every week. It is such a treat for us. So, thank you to everyone who's been sending us your questions. And if you're just tuning in now, you can drop your questions below wherever you're watching. Just comment. So, what are we talking about today, Shan?
Hi, Lisa. We are talking about supplements today, and I have to agree with you that this is such a treat to be able to have this time together every week. And I simply hope that it is something that everyone else is benefiting from as well. So if you are enjoying these so far, let us know through a DM at Instagram or email us or whatever it is. We'd really love to know what you're enjoying and what you'd like more of. And with that in mind, today's topic is actually because some of our members have been enjoying the podcast and they have more questions for us. So one of the questions that came up this week and has been coming up quite a lot with all of our clients is, what supplements should I be taking? Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
So Lisa, would you like to start on this topic about supplementation?
Yes. Supplementation. So it's funny now when you kind of open up any social media platform. I don't know if it's just mine and my algorithm based on, what we're interested in our industry with health and nutrition and wellness. But it feels like this inundation, it feels like this kind of intense place that I just don't want to be involved in anymore, really, where the marketing is so heavy, so pushing towards supplementation now, and the marketing is so effective that it makes you feel like, even for us in this space where we've been focusing on wellness and nutrition and movement for years, it makes you feel like, oh, I need that thing. I'm deficient in this. If I don't get this superfood or this supplement or this product, whatever's being pushed, then I'm going to experience really terrible adverse side effects, or I'm not going to be this like superhuman that other people are getting to be by taking said supplement. And so just that kind of in general, when you feel that kind of like suck and that pull, like you're sucked into this pendulum of intense energy, that's when I'm like, okay, time to sit back and let's kind of ground, root center, and reassess. So that's like one. If you just feel like you're being pulled in all these directions, just like take a step back, because we have so much amazing knowledge to share with you of what you can do before you even get to supplementation or even considering it. But I will say that kind of first and foremost, it's a huge part of it is like fantastic marketing. It is a fantastic really fantastic way to make a lot of money. And I'm not judging. I know, absolutely, we know that there's certain deficiencies that people have, but the way that supplements are marketed nowadays, it's no different than all of the prescription drug medication commercials that you see on TV if you watch that on occasion. And like that same kind of intensity in your face. But just in general, for everyone out there, what you need to understand about supplements, at least in the United States, is that it's kind of the Wild West in terms of what is allowed. And more often than not, there's certain ingredients and chemicals and things that are allowed in supplements that aren't as regulated as, say, our food. And so it's kind of like anything goes until it's proven to be harmful. And one example we were talking about yesterday was, do you remember all of those like Hydroxycut and all those diet pills from back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Ephedra.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like
Speed.
Yeah. And it was like 10 years on the market. You could take that. And then once people started dying, they were like, yeah, okay, we're going to take that off the market.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where you have to be your own advocate for health first,
Mhm.
And we can kind of look into supplementation because I don't believe that they are, one, necessary for everybody, and
Mhm.
two, not always taking your best personal interest into consideration.
Yes. This is such a big topic. I have so many thoughts as you're sharing that. It's an incredible thing to actually sit back, like you're saying, and to take that step back and go, okay, what am I actually trying to quote unquote fix here? And when we're working with our own bodies and when we're working with clients, and clients are coming to us saying, hey, what supplement should I be taking? Our first question is, why are you looking to take a supplement?
Yeah.
What are you looking to supplement in your life right now? And some clients are looking for performance or to improve their weight loss. It's a whole other episode. And what we're doing inside of the programs that we're running is we're looking at all of the foundational health practices, elevating your frequency, the foundational aspects of frequency elevation, which is the frequency that your body is running at, so it runs the most efficiently. And how we're seeing it right now is that if you don't have your sleep in order, if you don't have your nutrition in order, if you're not moving your body regularly, if you are in a very stressful environment, if you're consistently indoors and you're not getting sunshine, if you aren't and you have not yet moved through all of these different elements, if you're not consciously breathing, probably the first one, conscious breath, right?
Yeah.
If you're not doing all of these things first, then maybe it's not time to go to supplementation right away. I would say handle the other aspects of your life first, and then look at supplementing for. And exactly what you're saying, that in our culture and in the US right now, it's not about, oh, is this safe to consume? It's, we're just going to do whatever we think is like just pushing the line until someone says something. And the immediate example that came up was when they dye tampons. And
Yes.
dyeing tampons so that females will bleed more, so that we'll buy more tampons. If you are listening to this and you did not know that this was a thing and you're gagging a little bit in your mouth, Lisa and I understand.
Yes.
Buy organic, unbleached tampons or figure out something else for yourself in that area. But this is just one example that unless, like, we would not know this unless someone did a study on it or they took actionable interest in their own health and listened to what their body was saying. So what you're saying, Lisa, in terms of being an advocate for our own health, that's what we're saying to do first and foremost. Supplementation is getting assistance for what you could already be doing on your own. And not to say that I don't use supplements, because I will, and I have, and I do, but the supplements that I use are more for convenience, as in protein powder, for example. It is so much easier to drink protein powder than to eat a whole chicken.
Right. Yes.
Right after you're done working out. It's actually, I don't feel like eating protein after I work out. Actually, I feel like drinking water. And luckily, protein powder mixes with water, and there we have a solution. So inside of that, but Lisa, when you look at your own supplementation and the things that you've tried, what have you tried as a pro and a con? Like, what have your pro and con experiences been? And what have you found that you're like, oh my God, I really enjoyed that thing and that experience? And other ones where you're like, wow, I will not do that again, but now I'm very happy that I know.
Oh my gosh. Per usual, we are both like little guinea pigs and in experimenting with everything because we're just curious. I want to know and experience all the things so that, you know, we go through it and we have a firsthand experience of what it's like. So again, nowadays with the kind of the information overload, I find myself toggling between information overload and intuition. And it's kind of like, let's just come back to the middle. Like there's got to be like this middle area. So I remember reading about, you know, for quite some time, maca, for example, it's the Southern American root vegetable plant that, there's different kinds. There's red maca, there's another type of maca. And, it started popping up. It was like the hot new supplement, and it was popping up in everything. And everything I had read about it, there's all these like blanket statements of positive side effects. It will balance your hormones. And what was wrong with my hormones? Probably fucking nothing. I was just like, yes, I need to balance my hormones. And this was already like, well into my nutritional balancing journey anyway. And there was, if anything, my periods were so significantly, insanely better just from balancing my blood sugar. Like I went from needing a hysterectomy to having literally the best, chillest periods ever. And we'll talk about balancing blood sugar as like one of the main pillars of health, regardless of what you eat. It's just how you eat it and how to make it balanced is like the most important, I would say. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to try this Maca powder. It has all these amazing supposed benefits. I start taking it for a month, like adding it as part of my coffee latte. And a month later, it was like my hips, boobs, butt, everything was just, I was like, I'm already a very curvy female. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this is not balancing my hormones. This is increasing estrogen in my body. And excess estrogen is not great for anyone, really. And so after a month of that, I was like, okay, well, that was like bigger boobs, butt, thighs was not on this like beneficial information list for maca. And then I'm looking around and it's in everything. And we just don't, we don't know how it's made. If you can find that information out, that's one thing. But I'm like, here I am tampering with this like ancient, probably sacred plant that was used for a very specific reason in a different culture, in a different region. And I'm just taking it every day. Maybe it was a fertility root that was used for, fertility support back in the day. So there's certain things like that where I've done, tested it on myself and highly regretted it, for the side effects. And then, as soon as I stopped, my body rebalanced and I was fine. And my shape went back to normal. So if you are an ectomorph and you're really looking to add a volume to your butt, hips, and thighs, you might want to check out maca. But for me, it was like, yeah, no, I don't need that. And then also, just increase my body fat overall. Like I had a little bit more of a stomach and my food did not change. And that's one of the beautiful things about tracking. Like my food didn't change. It was just the maca. So that's one example.
It's a great example. And what you're pointing to now, which we've discussed a lot, is that when you are thinking about adding some sort of supplementation to your diet, the first thing to ask is, what are you looking to supplement? Why? Why?
Yeah, really.
And then when there is something that you are looking to supplement or to even try out, we like to try things out because we like to learn through experience. I am not one that likes to take someone's word for something that they've experienced in their body, because my body is different than their body. And the things that work for me will not necessarily work for someone else and vice versa. So we're real advocates in first having your baseline health components in place, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, sunshine, exercise, nutrition, breath, relationships, having a good balance of pleasure and play. Like all of these things are so valuable and important as our foundations of health, of consciously keeping ourselves healthy. And then when you look at supplementation, you can then look at it first, why, and then start getting curious. And what you're saying, Lisa, is that if you are not keeping everything else consistent, you will have a very, very hard time identifying what those supplements are actually doing in your body and how they're changing anything, right?
Yeah.
If you're changing everything at once, it's going to be impossible to track where the change is coming from. So that's another thing to just keep in mind, that if you are thinking about trying a supplement, to really make kind of one tweak at a time. And this is what we do also when we're looking at balancing blood sugar levels, right? Because everyone is going to be digesting foods at a different rate, and their body will respond to different foods in different ways. And so inside of that, really looking at when we're making changes, making small little incremental changes and keeping as much as we can in other areas of our life as similar as possible so that we can track the changes effectively. And I also wanted to remember to say this as a disclaimer, Lisa and I are not doctors. So this is our experience from working with our clients and working with our own bodies. So I just want to put that out there. We're not pro or con supplementation. We are simply sharing our experience with you. So legal disclaimer.
Yes, yes. And that's such a great point, Shannon, because sometimes we get these questions and we're like, number one, just what you're saying, we're not doctors. We're not in a place to be like prescribing or saying yes or no, but we can also share from our just like the basics of like what supplements are. So kind of the basics are you have, when we're talking about, let's put maca root and stuff like that aside, but when we're talking about like vitamins and minerals, there are synthetic versions and then there's whole food based supplements. If you take anything away from this entire podcast and you're just kind of blindly like taking supplements, or if a doctor has recommended you supplement, you have a deficiency, the first and foremost thing to look for is a whole food supplement. So it's literally coming from a food item. It is not just an example. Ascorbic acid is not, technically it's vitamin C, but there's no vitamin C in it. It's made from two properties that do not contain vitamin C. To me, that's not the same thing as a whole food vitamin C supplement that is pulled from a whole food vitamin C source. So that's kind of one thing you can look for. Labdoor.com is one of the founding fathers of like third-party unbiased supplement testing. I use that as a resource all the time. They do their own testing, so there's no conflict of interest. It's not like, oh, we tested our own supplement and it did this. It's like they actually test it for efficacy, safety. They test for heavy metals, and they test that for accuracy. This product says it has 30 grams of digestible protein. Is this true? And then it'll literally tell you how much it actually has. It's fascinating. Labdoor.com, you can become a member for free and you get like the full reports on all kinds of supplements. One of the most eye-opening to me was finding out about fish oil. I was taking fish oil and I was like, I finally found Labdoor and I looked it up. I'm like, oh, great. I'm taking rancid fish oil that is completely oxidized and toxic in the body. And like, I don't even take it anymore because I eat salmon and I eat eggs. And it's like, I'm not deficient anymore. It's like when the more you learn about the healing properties of balanced food intake, and the less you need supplements. And I think what's so fun now being in this space and what you and I have been talking about is there's a lot of these foods you don't need in these massive amounts, like nutrient density. It's called nutrient dense foods for a reason. It's max vitamins, minerals, and calories in a small amount. And you can get a lot of these things like salmon and eggs are one of the rare two food sources of naturally occurring vitamin D, as in the sun. And synthetic vitamin D supplementation can actually deplete your body of magnesium. And what do we know today? Most people are magnesium deficient. So it's such a complex, layered topic that you really want to, one, start with your nutrition and getting as much as you can from like unprocessed whole foods. And then two, if you really feel like you're deficient and you just want more information, you can get a blood test. I would say a blood test and a hair test. And it's something you know a lot about through what your mom does.
Yes.
Nutritional balancing is you get a short-term view of what's going on in your body, but the hair test is going to give you that zoomed out long-term view.
Very
long.
Then
you can actually look into it and be like, oh, I am deficient in this thing. Like, how can I rectify that?
Yes, absolutely. And if you haven't done any sort of testing, this is absolutely what I express with anyone who's thinking about taking supplements is like, first, we have a foundation. And then second, get yourself tested to see if you actually need this. Because if you are further supplementing something that your body actually doesn't need, it can further become toxic. So you want to have that balance. And what I will say is that in my experience with my trials and errors of supplementation or nutrition strategies or whatever it might be, when I have done the hair mineral analysis testing, which is something that my mother does and has been doing for, I think, almost 15 years or 16 years now, is that when I have done this, I notice an immediate difference in my body and my brain cognition and my emotional state within about a week. And it's pretty wild. And so the hair mineral analysis testing will also test for toxic or heavy metals. And that's something that you will not find out from your blood work. And those toxic metals or the heavy metals can be from passing through the uterus when you were born. So they are incredibly old or very long term. And what's interesting there is you'll see a change that happens over a period of time if you do hair testing over a course of years, which I have done. And it's just it's a whole other topic, but
yeah,
I digress. So in this topic, just with pure supplementation, and then we'll get into one of the questions that we got from one of our members this week as well. Our feeling and theory is that there is so much to know. It's like the Wild West, for one. So if you are looking at supplementation, use something like Labdoor, educate yourself, become your own advocate for what you're actually putting into your body. But even before you go that far, and if you haven't looked at all of these other pillars of health, try that first before spending money on something that you could very well heal and balance through your daily practices of just taking care of yourself.
And you'll save money.
Yes.
I remember just one of our recent clients who's now becoming a coach. I'm calling her out. I won't say her name, but the amount of supplements and powders and super this and blah, blah, blah that were coming in when I was first looking at food logs, and, some of the symptoms she was experiencing was like indigestion. And I'm like, well, yeah, like what is all this stuff? And are we supposed to have this stuff in this concentrated of a high amount?
Mm-hmm.
There was a study that came out recently in the last year that Brett Contreras, the glute daddy, shared that green powders, like all the athletic greens, all these green powders, so hot right now, get all your vegetables in this one serving, this one scoop, which no. And two, they found that it was so highly concentrated in antioxidants in an amount that is insane for humans to consume that it started interfering with muscle synthesis and development.
Interesting.
Especially if you took it post-workout. And it makes sense. It's like it was bringing your cortisol and inflammation down so low that you couldn't build muscle.
Fascinating.
And I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to take green powder, at least now don't take it right after strength training.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. And again, track, because everyone's different.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool. There's so much to know. Like it's just never ending.
Yes.
Okay. So moving into the question that we got from one of our members, which was around when you are having some sort of lifestyle change that you're making, and I'm just going to bulk it into that category. Of course, inside of our programs, it's a lot about nutrition, about the science of macronutrients. And there's an interesting connotation, or there has been in the past, a belief that tracking macros is this bad thing. Yeah. And for some people, and for some practitioners or coaches who lead this kind of vocabulary into their practices, it could be a kind of a fad thing. But to be clear, macro is short for macronutrient. Macronutrients include protein, carbohydrates, fats, and water. It's what our body requires for survival. So this client was asking about how do we share this with other people in our lives and kind of make it a bit of an easy conversation. Because some people will come in and feel like, oh, I can't share this because maybe that means that something's wrong with me, which is why I'm doing this. And of course, I've had this conversation hundreds of times with clients, but Lisa, when you hear clients having this question, what's your response with how to talk to friends and family members about what they're doing?
It's such a great question because I know I felt it myself when I first was learning the information, having done so many diets and tried so many nutrition fads and trends in the past, that I was assuming that this was going to be the same thing of like, oh, it's just another diet. And, there's shame now around people trying new nutrition protocols and anything diet related. As much as there's a diet culture movement, there's an anti-diet culture movement that is also extreme. And again, it's like, let's just get back to the gray area. Like, okay, cool. Tracking your macros and tracking your food may be triggering for some people. Believe me, I get that. When I first started tracking, it was like a game and I had so much fun. And then as I got deeper into it, I started getting a little obsessive and I'm like, okay, it's like time to take a break. And now, like revisiting it a year later, I love it. I have a totally peaceful, healthy relationship with it. Like, I love tracking food now. I think it is so much fun. And it's like data collection and I nerd out on it. And I'm like, ooh, did I get all the things? So I see that it can go into those extremes, but intention and perspective are everything. So once I started, you invited me to look at it differently. I was like, I don't know if I can this is so weird. I don't know if I should be like doing this in front of my kids of like tracking my food and weighing things. And then just like you opening my eyes to like, what if that's not true? Like, what if that doesn't have to be true, that it's a bad thing? Like, that's just a label that I was experiencing because I had tried so many diets and things like that. When I shifted that perspective, I was like, oh, why is this a bad thing? I'm learning about what the fuck I'm putting in my body. Like, this is kind of important. I'm learning what a normal serving size looks like, not an Italian serving size. I'm learning about how when you go to a restaurant in America versus a restaurant in Italy, like I saw the difference and I was like, I can tell you right here why we have an obesity problem in the United States. So just that shift in perspective had to come from me first. So once I shifted it and then I changed my energy about it and then I couldn't stop talking about it. I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever. I have so much energy. Like, why isn't this information taught to us when we're kids? I'm teaching my kids. They're teaching their teachers now. Their teachers are asking me for protein pancake recipes. So we've started a little movement here, but it has to start with you. Once you change your energy and your perspective and you see it through the lens of, this is education, this is taking control of my health and my wellness, and it's deep self-care. It is not a diet. And if you're looking at it like a diet and you're super attached to, oh, this is a way to manipulate my food intake so I can be the smallest version of myself possible. I don't care about my health or any other factors. Like, I just want to be skinny. That could be a problem. But if you shift your perspective, that's going to emanate out to everyone who you talk to. And then you're like standing in that power.
Yes. 100% yes. And even as you're talking, I can feel that shift, the shift of, I feel somewhat shameful about what I'm doing here. I'm on a diet. It means that there's something that I'm looking to fix within myself. And then the other opportunity of perspective, which is, wow, I get to understand what I'm putting inside of my body.
Yeah.
Inside of my body.
Right.
Where I just normally throw some stuff in there and just trust that it will figure itself out. And it does generally until we get sick.
Yep.
And what an incredible thing. I'm just actually kind of coming to grips with this now, because I also had that idea that if you're weighing food, it's a little too much. Like, I'm not that person. That's a little over the top for me. Yeah. That was kind of the feeling that I had way back when, before I started. And then when I started to understand that it's not just what we're eating, but how much we're eating of it, and also the quality of it, I was like, oh my gosh, to whoever I judged in the past, I am so sorry. I knew not what I was speaking of.
Yeah.
Because now, you know, Rafa and I, we are doing this all the time, every single morning. It's like washing your dishes after you're done, except now we're weighing our food beforehand.
Yeah.
So for that question from our member, what I would invite you to do, and there's a couple of different options actually. What I did in the beginning of my journey is I just minded my P's and Q's. I didn't really tell anyone. I just did my thing. My body changed and everyone was like, what are you doing? Oh my God, I have to know. So that's one option. You can just do your thing and just not even talk about it. Or the other option is if someone asks you, you can say, hey, I'm actually learning how to feed my body, maybe for the first time in my life. And it's pretty awesome. And I'm loving it. And it's a little bit of a learning curve. It's like learning a different language, but it's fascinating. And this is what I'm doing. That's another option. And then even further, what we also say that when you're going to spend time with people in your life, and this also relates to like drinking or not drinking alcohol, any sort of, people smoking pot, like whatever it might be that's happening in your life where you're having that anxiety that might come up before you arrive to an occasion where you're like, oh shit, I'm not doing the same things that these people expect me that I should or would be doing otherwise. Have a conversation ahead of time. Hey, so-and-so, I know we have plans this weekend, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm incorporating this new way of doing whatever it is, and I would love your support. So, because if you think about being on the other side of that, and Lisa, if I were to say that to you, hey, I'm going to see you this weekend. I've made some adjustments to how I drive my car, and I would really love you to just keep me accountable or support me in this new discovery that I'm in. What would be your response?
Well, hopefully your good friend or whoever it is you're asking that would say, absolutely, I support you 100%. Tell me more. That sounds really interesting. And if you don't get that response, with family, I know it's a little different. We can't always cut them, chop, chop. But that's it, with all of this, it's such a unique process because you do start to reevaluate things. There's the saying of, tell me the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I'll tell you about yourself. Mm-hmm. Because truly who we're surrounded by, the 5 people we see and are around the most, are the most influential in our life. And gosh, I see this with my own mom, and I feel for people like her who are really trying to take control of their health and establish these baseline healthy habits. And then you have someone on the opposite spectrum, like my dad, who is like, he is here to enjoy life to the fullest and somehow is skating by with a functioning body. I can't tell you how or why. And so, if my mom were to operate like that 24/7, she would be really unhealthy, which she has been in the past. So kind of having that internal check with yourself, you may need to reassess a little bit about how and who you're spending your time with. And what are you, gosh, that was such an eye-opening experience for me. I was getting more selective about my food, more selective about what I was drinking, more selective about who I was spending time with, how much, when. And then it's almost like I cleared all these things that now you can consciously and intentionally add back in what is the most serving for you, that like lights you up and makes you feel the best.
Absolutely. And this is almost a much deeper topic that is its own podcast, is the as we do one thing, we do all things topic. And what you're saying, just to circle back so that to answer that original question, if you do find that someone is saying, oh, well, coming from a place of judgment, let's just say that that's it. It's generally a projection of where they haven't sorted things out with themselves. So I would just share that if someone is like, oh my God, why are you doing that? Which I really, truly hope that that's not the response that you get. Yeah. But just know that it's not about you, that if someone has an issue with you learning about your body and taking care of yourself in such a way, then it's probably something that they're working through, and it's not something to take as yours. So I think that probably covers like the general basic strategies for that. And like what we just opened up a can of worms because it's such a really big topic. And what we're going to be talking about in some of the coming episodes are both next week, we're going to talk about hormones. And I know Lisa's very excited for that. And I'm also very excited for that. And then coming up, we're also going to talk about alcohol, the impact of alcohol, how to navigate alcohol if you do choose to participate, and then what happens when you stop participating with alcohol and the shifts that can take place in your body there as it relates to performance, brain cognition, fat loss, all of these things. So there's a lot that's coming your way to those of you who are listening. Yes.
Yeah. Especially before the holidays. This will be good. We could do one on just like boundaries of like, here's my non-negotiables. And now how do you actually implement that without feeling like an asshole 24/7?
That's a big one.
It's a muscle.
Big one. It's a muscle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some people have that muscle that's really strong with certain things in their life, but not other things.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Like some people have a really strong muscle for when they need to go to sleep. But food is not a developed muscle.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, my clock is up. I'm going to bed. And their muscle is very strong in that way. And then other muscles, they're like, oh, I don't have that developed. But anyways.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Well, thank you everyone who joined us today. We hope this was helpful and fun and informative, and always lovely to sit with you, Lisa.
You too. We'll see you next week for hormones. Woohoo.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I